I loved Mistborn.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
I finished it recently, or Era 1 of Mistborn, and I just wanted to ramble a little bit about what I thought of it. Warning, this video will contain heavy spoilers, so I'll just not filter. I'm guessing if you've clicked on this video that you've read the books and that you're somewhat of a fan as well. I've seen some complaints about Brandon Sanderson's writing style online, but I'm not here to talk about that. English is my second language, so I don't really get a feeling of super well made prose like that. I have read Patrick Rothfuss's work, and of course his English is way different than Brandon Sanderson, so I can kind of see what the difference is if that is what you think is a good pose and then Brandon doesn't have one. I can kind of see what you mean, but I'm mostly here to talk about the story, and I think what Brandon also intended for it, because he's a creative storyteller. He's not actually I don't think he has any writing background, as in expertise, as in studied it. Of course he has a writing background, he's an author. I appreciate that, because you can really tell in his story that he thought this whole thing through and through and through. Some things make sense in the beginning and make even more sense at the end. Some things don't make sense in the beginning and make all the sense in the world at the end. For example, Vin's earring makes perfect sense in the beginning. Why she would keep it, why she would wear it, I thought it made sense. Like that she has this little earring that her mom gave her, only for it to end up in some kind of plot that a dark god called Ruin wanted to suppress her powers of being a Mistborn and just keep her contained with this little spiked what was it called again? Hermalurgic metal or something? I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. But I think it's super cool how these little details just explode later on. One thing that we did not really get an answer to, and what I think we'll get an answer to later on, I've not read Era 2 or other Mistborn secret books or whatever, is the fact that I feel like Kelsier and maybe his wife May are still around. I know that Spook saw the ghost and that was actually Ruin. I know. But I have a feeling that the real Kelsier, the survivor of Halcyon, is still out there some way or shape or form. Maybe it's just preservation that I'm seeing. Maybe I'm linking those two, but it could be I could be wrong. I haven't read any of the next books. Maybe it's explained there. But I feel like they are still around. You know what I mean? Maybe that's just the whole vibe I'm getting. But it would be really cool to see what he's going to do with that couple, as I feel like we know so little about May especially. I want to see more of what happened there. I know she just got killed in the pits and that it made Kelsier snap. But yeah, I feel like there's something there. We were led on for May to be a little bit more powerful than she presented herself, and I wanna really dig down into that. If I had to rank the books, I would rank Hero of Ages the highest, Final Empire the second, and Well of Ascension the least. I had the most trouble with the beginning of Well of Ascension. It was rather slow, and I wasn't very into Elend at that point. I've grown. Elend has grown on me in the third book, but in the second book, I found his storyline to be a little annoying, if I'm honest. I'm not much into the whole who gets to rule, who gets to wear the crown storyline, so that's on me, of course. It's still amazingly written, and I've still enjoyed it more than books that I just plainly did not finish. But if I had to change anything about this book, it would probably be Elend, and especially in the second book. In the first book, he's this playful, teasing, I don't know how I can say it on the YouTube-friendly words, he's an a-hole. And then he turns into this king, and he has all that weight on him, and I get it. It's natural for his character to kind of revert to a shell or like a sort of more boring and serious person. I get it. It's totally fine. It's just not for me. I don't like reading that for an extended amount of time. I get that people would. I'm totally not blaming you if you enjoyed that change. I just personally didn't. And when that whole thing was happening of him being king, not being king, Penrod becoming king, his father like trying to get rulership of Luthadel, I was just not very interested in that whole thing. I was more interested in Zane and Vin than the other stories. And that's fine, you know, the whole book doesn't need to be for me, because I loved Hero of Ages and I loved Final Empire, so I already got 2 books that are for me, so you can have the 3rd one. I think my favorite part about Mistborn as a whole is the magic system. It's weird how, if you try to explain it to someone, it sounds so complicated. And Brandon Sanderson really has this way of like teaching you how it works. Like, he probably had to explain it to someone in real life and just noticed like, oh my god, I am not making sense. And he just slowly spoon-fed us everything we needed to know very slowly so that we wouldn't get, you know, blasted with all this information. Having 16 metals and only 14 be discovered is a great way of like introducing them little by little. First there were 8, then we learn about more and more and more as they go through the books. Yeah, and I think I've tried to explain it myself. I've tried to tell people about this sort of magic, about the 16 metals that some Mistborn can ingest, burn, and then use for a certain power. Like iron pulling and steel pushing. And there I get them, you know, like I take them with me on this journey. I say, yeah, if you consume iron, you can pull metal towards you. And if you consume steel, you can push metal away from you. But then once we get into the emotional metals, it becomes fuzzy. And then you get into beryllium or into aluminum, and you get all kinds of funky wonky situations where the person is just looking at you like you are speaking gibberish. But that's the talent of the author of Sanderson, what he's doing. We understand what he means. He spoon feeds us little by little. We get it, we understand it, and that's my favorite part about the whole thing. The magic system is so awesome, and you know what everything is going to do beforehand, except for those occasional bits, of course. But you know when Vin pulls out a flask and downs it, you know what power she has, you know what she can do, and I love the restriction of it as well. She can't just wisp away her wand and the enemy drops dead. She can't just put up a defensive barrier that blocks everything. For what reason, we don't know. It has to be explained. Like, if she blocks a steel push of someone else, she has to use her own weight or an anchor point to balance the scales, to push back. It's not just because you push back it succeeds. No. There's a whole physical aspect to it, as in the weight of the person and where you're standing, how well or how sturdy you are, and that's just amazing. And then only to make these kinds of lesser metals, as Marsh said in the first book, I believe, that people often disregard weaker metals for stronger ones, and like as a reader you do it as well. I found myself doing it, like, oh, who would want tin or who would want bronze? But then Vin just challenges your belief on it and totally blows you away by what she can do with tin, or what Spook does with tin, or what Marsh said that bronze could do. There's all these examples of the weaker metals that turn out to be very strong. I think I've yapped enough about our books and about Brandon Sanderson as a whole. As you probably heard, I'm a fan, and I want to get into. We are following a certain Cosmere reading order. If you have your own personal order, feel free to comment it on this video. I would love to hear your thoughts on it, and tell me what your favorite Brandon Sanderson book is. For me, so far, it's been Hero of Ages, but I am so excited to get into Way of Kings, as I want to see Kaladin. I've seen so many good things about Kaladin, especially, so I really want to get into it. And I love lightning, man. Like, if you read my book, you'll see I love lightning. So Kaladin, Stormblast, I mean, that's just a character for me right there. Well, thank you for joining me once again, and I hope you have a fun day or night. Thank you.